understand what memory is and how it works. Initially, the descriptions were frankly metaphors, but they typically make more important points about the nature of learning and memory. One obvious feature of such metaphors is that they reflect the communication technology of the day, and this is true even of early metaphors. Both Plato and Aristotle likened memory to the wax tablets used by their students to record their lessons. A signet ring pressed into the soft wax left an impression, a term still in use today, and the record remained until it was overwritten by a further mark or the wax melted. These ancient philosophers also suggested that differences in memory ability could be understood in terms of differences in the consistency of the material receiving impressions. If the wax was too soft and runny, it would not retain a sharp image. If it was too hard, as perhaps in elderly people, it would not record the impression. Ingenious though they were, however, these early thinkers were unable to show what corresponded to the wax tablet in real humans. Plato offered another metaphor, illustrating the difference between possessing a specific piece of knowledge, or memory of an event, and being able to bring it to conscious awareness at a given moment. He told his students to imagine they had caught birds of different species and built a large aviary to keep them in. Upon entering the aviary, it might be possible to catch a bird and hold it temporarily in hand, corresponding to a remembered event in the person's mind. On release of the bird, that specific memory is no longer in conscious awareness, although it is still retained in the overall system. This distinction between the many past episodes and pieces of knowledge that we know and those we are currently aware of leads to interesting questions of how these different types of memory are represented in the brain, perhaps some form of neural activity for information in awareness as opposed to alterations of neural structures for our personal storehouse of facts and experiences. Most metaphors of memory over the centuries have described the memory system as a storehouse or palace with many rooms in which memories may be placed. A more up-to-date version of this storehouse metaphor is a large library. In such a system, new books are stored in precise locations, according to such specified characteristics as the general topic, date of publication, and author's name. Armed with such knowledge, a borrower can retrieve the sought-for volume successfully at a later time. Even huge libraries like the Library of Congress and the British Library work effectively on this system. But when we consider human memory, when metaphors meet the brain, as it were, the analogy is less persuasive. There is little evidence, for instance, that our millions of specific memories are each stored in just one specific location in the brain. In contrast, most neuroscientists now believe that memories are represented by neural networks distributed widely throughout the cerebral cortex, the brain's outer layers. Additionally, the library metaphor suggests that memories of events and pieces of knowledge are fixed objects, like books on shelves, whereas a stronger case can be made for memories as dynamic activities of the brain rather than as static entities. And this is the approach endorsed by most current neuroscientists. Chapter 7. Memory, not just one thing. The memory metaphors just described treat memory as being one thing, whereas much recent evidence suggests that there are various types of memory. As an example, in 1917, philosopher Henri-Louis Bergson suggested the past survives in two forms, as the adjustment of perceptual and motor mechanisms to a particular set of circumstances and as independent recollections. In the case of a student learning to recite a passage from literature, for instance, Bergson argued that the first reading contributed to the habit necessary to recite the passage by heart in the future, and also laid down a memory record of the unique reading of the passage on a specific occasion. The distinction between learned procedures and remembered episodes is a salient part of modern thinking about memory, and we discuss it further later. The general point that memory exists in a variety of forms and functions also makes sense of clinical observations that patients can experience loss.